Luke Johnson covers the New Orleans Saints for The Advocate in New Orleans. Luke, so many questions, and really they all kind of revolve around the quarterback position this offseason. Let me just start really general and kind of you tell me what you think is happening. And obviously you are as informed as anybody because you're covering this team on a daily basis, and I know you're focused on it as well.
Yeah, so, I think the general opinion of people over there right now with the Saints is I think the expectation is that Drew Brees is going to retire, and he's going to, I imagine, an announcement is coming soon one way or another. But I think the expectation is that he's done, and they're going to do what they can to re-sign Jameis Winston because I think they really like him after having spent a year with him last year. So I think that is, out of all the possible outcomes, I think that is the most likely, and I think there's a lot of variables that go into that that could make things not play out that way. But I think if we're talking about the ideal here, or if we're talking about what they are anticipating playing out, I think that's kind of what you're looking at.
All right, so what was the hullabaloo about the workout video with Drew Brees? Is that he just works out because he's worked out his entire life, and somebody decided to release that? Was there cause for concern when that came out?
No, I don't think so. I think the longer Drew drags this out, and it's really just dragging it out for those of us who've just been waiting for an answer from him for months now, since the end of the season. Yeah. But yeah, I think the longer this plays out, where he's not announcing anything yet, I think the more and more people are convincing themselves that this is him, a sign of him wanting to come back. And I think when you pair that with this video of him doing this intense workout with his trainer, Todd Durkin, you're like, well, there's the evidence right there. But I think Drew is such a routine-driven person, and somebody who I imagine is going to try to keep himself in peak physical condition for as long as he possibly can, that I think even if he'd announced his retirement weeks ago, we'd still see videos like that popping out. I don't see him as somebody who's gonna, hang up the football cleats and then, just go play tennis every couple days as his exercise. He's like a competitive human being who's going to be doing stuff like this in the future. So, I try not to read too much into it. It's a little bit different. Sorry, my dogs are being crazy here.
Hey man, it happens. I got 3 of them at the house. I completely get it.
It's a little bit different when the expectation is hey, you're going to announce one way or another whether you're coming back or you're leaving, and it opens up all these windows for us to try to interpret things that we wouldn't normally otherwise think are out of the ordinary. And I just don't think that him doing these crazy intense workouts with his trainer Todd Durkin are really going to change anything. Based on his decision of whether to keep it going.
Luke Johnson from the New Orleans Advocate on your radio on the Farm Bureau phone line. Is there an element to this where it's helpful to the Saints from a financial standpoint for Drew to wait longer, or have we already passed whatever date needed to pass for that to kick in?
No, they did the restructure already, which that in itself was a sign to many that he was probably going to retire because. Okay. The figure that he is currently under contract for the 2021 season is not even close to something he would actually play for. And that was really done in order to give them some immediate room against the salary cap. If he decides to come back, that contract will absolutely get reworked because he's not going to play for, I think it's like $1 million or something like that. That's just not going to happen. But by doing that now, it allows them some flexibility and a little bit more space because right now they don't have any space. They're like negative $60 million of cap space to let them try to build the roster right now. And then the actual like transaction, if he ends up retiring, won't come until after June 1st, at which point they can basically spread out the remainder of what they owe him over 2 years instead of having it all come due this year.
Gotcha. All right, so part two of this. You said you think Jameis is the most likely outcome, and we'll get to that because I've got questions about that as well in just a second. But because of where we live, because of what he did in college, and because of the mess that they have made of the Dak Prescott negotiations in Dallas, there are people that are saying, well, can the Saints get Dak? Is there a way for the Saints to get Dak? And then because of all this stuff in Seattle, there are questions about Russell Wilson. Are either of those even remote possibilities in your mind, financially or otherwise?
I think the Russell Wilson one is a really, really, really remote possibility. I think they could make that happen. Like they could move the numbers around and just they'd have to like include a contract in the trade and everything. Like they could do that. Now, in order for them to do that, not only does Seattle have to be willing to part with him, but they have to then beat out the better offers or what might be better offers from other teams. So, like
okay.
they don't have really great draft capital to trade with. Like they could send 3 first-round picks, but they're if they've got Russell Wilson in this roster they have right now, they're probably going to be toward the back end of the first round. So that makes them a little less valuable. They don't really have like a quarterback to trade. They could technically send Taysom Hill. He's got a year left of his contract, but there's just a lot of obstacles to them putting together the most attractive package when there's several other teams that would be undeniably in the mix for one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So I think they could make it work with their financial situation. The actual numbers for Russell Wilson's contract are not that bad in the next coming years. They could make it work, but it would be really difficult to actually put together the package to land him. As far as Prescott, he's a completely different situation because in order to even get him on the club, I mean, they'd have to realistically signing him on the open market. You're talking about probably north of 35, close to $40 million a year on that contract. And that's
maybe north of $40 million on the open market.
Yeah. I mean, really. If you're looking at the contracts that have been signed by other players recently, you're probably right. Probably north of $40 million. But let's just say conservatively, right? But let's say he would sign a long-term extension for $37 million.
Okay.
So they've already got money. They've already got money this year committed to Drew Brees, no matter what. They've got $16 million tied up in the Taysom Hill this year. It's just with the salary cap being what it is. Even if they did their normal thing where they, have a huge chunk of the first year salary be signing bonus, and they defer that money over the years, it's just you're looking at a really, really difficult situation for them to try to fit his contract in the books with all these other contracts they have coming up. And it's a lot more of a difficult problem to try to fit that in.
Luke, would it be more doable?
I just don't think that's likely.
Yeah, if Dallas ended up tagging him this year and they just went kind of status quo with Jameis, would it be more doable a year from now with the new salary cap based on these like unbelievable TV revenue numbers that are kind of being reported? Would that kick in a year from now and give them the flexibility to do it then?
Well, see, the problem they're coming up with right now is that they don't know what next year's salary cap is going to be like,
right?
And they can say, maybe it'll be back to normal, but when they're putting these rosters together, they're not just planning for 2021 right now, but they're projecting into the future. Okay, well, how much money are we going to have? How much, who can we possibly restructure to free up some space and all that? And right now, 2022 is just a huge question mark. I mean, 2021 is still a question mark. They still don't have an established salary cap for this year. So the revenue could be, even with the big TV deal, if they're not able to get full attendance this fall, if they're not able to, there's all these different factors that are at play here that could make next year's salary cap, even if it's higher than this year's, not what they were expecting 2 years ago when they were planning out, those free agent signings and everything like that. So it's this really, really complicated situation right now where you're trying to figure out how to fit all those things together. And they've got guys coming up that they want to retain with extensions that they might not even be able to have those conversations with Ryan Ramczyk or Marshawn Lattimore this year because they have no idea what the cap is going to look like next year. It's just all kind of uncharted territory. And it's the first time, since they've been doing all this stuff and kind of, playing these games with the salary cap, they've always been able to bank on, okay, it's been increasing year by year. You can kind of write that in. And, the salary cap was $205 million. Well, next year it's going to be $210 million. And they can always